All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest news and rumors all offseason long in Mets land. But before we get into it and get into all of the craziness, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for weekly episodes of our show, like this one, that are now recorded every Monday night, typically at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live, as well as multiple videos that we like to put out throughout the week, all off season long. For those of you in the live chat right now, we want to let you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that. You feel like you're being ignored. You're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show, and we'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Some may be saved for viewer questions toward the end of the show. Follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for future content over there. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 108. And let me just say, not much movement has happened. We've seen some rumors sprinkle around. We are still in this, I don't know, purgatory right now regarding Pete Alonso. Some rumors being sprinkled around about starting pitching. Some rumors being sprinkled around about other bats that they can add, and we'll get into all of it. But one thing I can say right now, I'm kind of enjoying the downtime. I may be in the minority there, and everybody wants to have the action, but let's just say when the Mets make these moves in clumps, I like to kind of prepare myself in clumps as well. Let's just say that. Downtime needs to be the same as the uptime. Let's just say that. Frank, I'll go to you. You're here. What's going on? How do you feel at this moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a waiting game. I mean, we're still not done. We've got off to a great start. We obviously got the most important thing done, as we know, but there still is more work to be done, no doubt about it. Even though there's not a lot happening in Metsland, I mean, you're still seeing some other big things happen around baseball. I mean, seeing the big fish on the starting pitching market finally go, one of the big bats off the board. So there still are some other things that still need to be sorted out, and stuff that really involves the Mets as well is part of that too. So I mean, that's one of the other interesting aspects, is, as we've talked about, but you know, you kind of wonder how all these markets play out when it's all said and done, when a lot of these teams are looking at certain players, they get other options and there's not as many suitors. So then some of these players and agents have to drop down prices, which is what the Mets are doing. They're waiting out the market. So, you know, right now it may seem quiet, but you know, the hope is that that quiet time is worth it for when you actually get the guy. It's for a very reasonable deal. It's not something that for years you're like, oh my gosh, we're paying this player this amount of money, and how that's impacting other things. So, you know, they're just trying to play it safe, play it smart, and just, you know, play the waiting game.
You never know what they're going to end up doing, because there's a lot of things that have gone on behind closed doors. And I think that that's something that kind of angsts Mets fans sometimes. And they see a lot of these signings happen and they're like, I didn't even know we were attached to this guy. I kind of like it as to where it can just pop up out of nowhere. I don't really like this times that they have been signing these guys in terms of being a content creator. It's a little bit of an annoyance. Andrew, speaking of annoyance, you're here. I had to do it. What's going on, man? I don't know what happened.
I think he's doing the Mets waiting game. You know,
nice.
We called it the Alonso staring contest. That's the title of the podcast. So he's doing a staring contest with the audience.
We still can't hear you. I don't know. I still can't hear him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something's going on. I'm not sure. I don't know, but we can get into the guys in the comments section for a second. Tommy coming in saying, about to heat up my leftovers at 6:50, so I'm pretty sure he said this before the show started. So I timed this meal perfectly. Blessed emoji. Absolutely. Steven coming in here saying hello as well.
What's for leftovers, though, Tommy? I mean, we like food. Tell us what you're having.
Is it I mean, is it Christmas leftovers? I don't even like.
Oh, that's leftover.
Be?
I mean, that's
leftover. I mean, that's.
I would love
like,
to get Andrew's take
yeah.
on it, but that's kind of playing a little dicey there, depending on what it is.
I mean,
Andrew,
how about
you got?
Now you can see. I summoned him. Talked about food, and now
there we go.
Got it. Oh, chicken,
Talk
rice, and beans.
Food, and it works.
That's a safe.
It's almost like
right.
There you go. That's not bad. Not bad.
Your style, excellent.
There you go. So,
Andrew, the floor is yours.
okay, I'm about to say, the fucking computer's being a pain in the ass. But yeah, again, you're in that mid-holiday, obviously at the big holiday this past week. We have the Fugazi holiday in a couple days where, oh my god, everybody's life's going to drastically change because a number changes on the calendar. Whoop-de-doo. But again, most guys, again, you've seen some minor things, but then the Burns thing, again, like you said, can these guys stop signing at like 1 in the morning? Like, I literally turn my phone off, I watch a movie, I scroll over just to turn my alarm on, and like at 1 in the morning, oh, Corbin Burns is an Arizona Diamondback. Like, can we there's a thing called like noon, when it's light out, when the sun's out, maybe do some of those, but again, as a night guy, I don't really care, I'm going to be up anyway, but besides the point, again, you're in that lull of waiting for that new year to hit, so I don't think you're going to get anything in the next couple days, and again, when you have a guy the fan base loves and is just sitting there waiting to get paid. And, we have a GM that does not care about your feelings. And, oh, well, he's a fan favorite. He don't give a shit. He's trying to get him at proper value. And you're playing a game and you've seen maybe either some chess being played of a potential offer, or you're seeing David Stearns maybe look at say, if I'm going to be cheap, maybe I'm going to go a little more crazy in the offensive game. So again, we're kind of just waiting and seeing. And you know what? As a guy and as a fan base that loves to wait, David Stearns is the perfect executive for all of us.
Well, I think that when we look at it from the point of view of Stearns, if you want to do that or not, whether you like him or not, whether you think that he's, always asleep or whatever, he's another Sandy Alderson, I think it's pretty much something that you need to establish here is the main reason why it seems like it goes very slow, or it seems like it has waves where they make 2 moves in the same week and then they make 0 moves in the next week. He's very well thought out in that way. He's not looking to build your fantasy team. He's not looking to build who had the best stats or who did all of this in the past or whatever. He's looking at it from what can they do going forward? Who can be the better investment going forward? And that's something that David Stearns looks at. When it comes to, stuff like advanced data and things that these front offices look at these days, it gets very misinterpreted in the fact that, projections or any of these advanced numbers, they're not used for perfection. They're used for efficiency. And sometimes they don't lean their way. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look like good signings and sometimes they don't. But in an efficient way, when you want to say, let's say this in a very standardized way for old guys like Frank to articulate this. 3 out of 10.
I can't make any content. I mean, I'm just like asleep, and then the whole thing happens. Don't talk about sleepy Stearns. I mean, I'm sleepy, and then I just can't make anything happen. It's frustrating. Yeah. But I mean, listen. Again, I
3 times out of 10.
I really don't know why. Besides, sort of like all these things have to happen late at night. And like Siri, I just don't understand why it's like, oh, now we came to an agreement. Like we had all day, but it's like, oh, now that it's like after midnight, it's like, oh yeah, now we got it. Like Mania, like why was Mania like 1 in the morning? Like that made no sense. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Mets fans, they all really want to just get on Twitter, get on social media, and see something move over and over and over again, and then things to go quicker. I think that some front offices are kind of taking a little bit more of a smarter approach, or a little bit more of a careful approach with who they do commit this money to. It's not really based off of the history of these long-term deals, but a lot more of how this game has kind of evolved into what position usually is more banged up, what position kind of has more depth in it, which one does, and how you kind of play that market. I think when it comes to the overall success rate of these moves, nobody really knows what it's going to be. But when it comes to the overall look at who is the right fit, I think that there is a decent path that Stearns can look at right now for the overall benefit of the team. And I think that when he's looking at it from maybe a little bit, Alonso is holding up this market for them, or holding up the free agency, or holding up the offseason for them. But they're also being a little bit more creative in how they're going to fill some of these roster spots. Something that really brings me joy to say, that brings us into this first topic that I want to get into, is the Mets are still in the outfield market right now. They seem to still be open to adding on to the outfield depth, bringing in some of these extra bats to deepen the lineup. Now, obviously, after Juan Soto, that was not an addition. That was not an addition that was just going to be taken lightly as the only thing that they were going to do. But when it comes to the overall lineup right now, when it comes to Juan Soto, obviously they promised him to add more hitters as well next to him. He is the only hitter that they have added through free agency. Jose Siri is the other one that they added. And obviously Siri has things that he does well, but he's not a perfect player that can be an impact player to protect somebody like Juan Soto in the lineup. Obviously,
he's brought in for
ninth.
Defense. He's not here to help
defense.
out the lineup. He's here to help out the team. He's here to help out the fielding aspect of it. So,
yeah, exactly. And there is a main reason as to why I think there's certain guys on this free agent market that are kind of a need, in my opinion, more than an opportunistic piece. But that's just a little bit more of the lineup configuration and more of what the Mets struggled with last year, which I'm sure we will get into as well in regards to some of these bats. And I do want to talk about the overall market that you're looking at in the outfield market. And when you look at it from the latest rumors outside of what we've seen from Pete and Bregman, the Mets are still being opportunistic. And what we heard last week, and we touched on it a little bit, but we'll talk about it a little bit more here. Jeff Passan on ESPN.com kind of talking about the Mets dabbling in the outfield market, even though they already have 4 outfielders plus Starling Marte, whether you want to count him as a viable outfielder or not, whether he plays left field or whatever. But there also has been some news that has come out recently as well. Jock Peterson, who went to the Rangers, the Mets were in on him. Now, obviously, Jock Peterson is a little bit more of a DH bat, but it looks like they are kind of circling into the outfield market and the DH market of kind of that versatility thing. We know that they talked about that in regards to JD Martinez last year, where there was a little bit of hesitance there and they wanted to wait for the right price. Teoscar Hernandez, it seemed like the Mets offered him a 2-year contract. And that was before he went back to the Dodgers. And Tim Healy actually reported that after Teoscar Hernandez went over to the Dodgers, and when he announced that on his Instagram. And then there's another piece in the matter, which seems like the most likely scenario for the Mets this offseason, that being Jesse Winker. Now, this is a rumor, okay? I'm specifying that this is a rumor, but it also does tie into what we're looking at on the free agent market, so I do want to bring it up. John Frescella on X, if I said that right, if I said that wrong, I don't know. He said Winker wants to return to the Mets, but understands they may currently have higher priorities to sign. Obviously, there are. Winker was ecstatic with his Mets teammates, coaches, and fans during his short tenure with the club this season. You look at some of the other outfielders out there right now, there is definitely, I mean, there is definitely some to work with in terms of fit into your lineup. nothing crazy past the Anthony Santander, who I do want to get into a little bit more specifically, of course. But when it comes to the overall outfield market, the Mets right now, of course, having Nimmo, signing Soto, bringing in Jose Siri, Tyrone Taylor, I know that they trust in center field to get those reps. And then you also have Marte here, who is probably viewed as more of a DH at this current moment. But overall, the outfield market right here, and this is where I'm going to cue you guys in. I'll go to Frank first. I tweeted this out, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, of the guys who I believe that the Mets probably are looking outside of Teoscar Hernandez, who they apparently offered a contract to, which I'm sure you're not very thrilled about, of course, with you being a Teoscar guy. But I do believe that the guys, and if I had to make a guess, in terms of like the Stearns model, again, I don't know, I don't have any sources, but if I were to take a guess, I think they were looking at Jerickson Profar. I think that they are looking at Kike Hernandez. And I would also say that Jesse Winker is also in that market. Would you agree with that? Would you add something else into that? I mean, Michael A. Taylor is another one that you can add in there because the Mets have been linked to him before. I mean, Frank, what do you think about this outfield market? I think that the big prize here is Santander. But again, past that there, corner outfield, DH, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think this is more of a DH conversation than as far as like outfield thing. Mainly because of Juan Soto being here and Brandon Nimmo being here in the corners. And as we said, when we look at this list and we look at the guys on here, outside of Bader and Taylor, which with Bader been there, done that, these guys are not offensive upgrades. I mean, there is much more of a need for a true designated hitter. While Marte could give you some offensive value, he doesn't give you, like I've said a million times, what a designated hitter should give you, which is power. He does not give you that right now. So you're looking at guys who kind of fit that mold a little better. And it's like, generally speaking, if I had that list of players and I got to add one just for a baseball team, I love Jerickson Profar. I've made that clear for years. I love the switch hitter, versatility, all this other stuff. But does he fit what this Mets team is looking for right now as more of a DH bat, more of a power bat? Not really. I mean, he had a really nice batting average this season, an all-star year, things like that. He had power when he faced the Mets a couple years ago in the playoffs, but other than that, he's not really that kind of guy. It's like if Teoscar Hernandez is the kind of player that you're looking at, like he's very different than somebody like Jerickson Profar. And you made the point in our group chat that you were a little surprised that Teoscar was the guy they're going for because he does have some similarities offensively as far as his weaknesses. Mostly the fact that he's right-handed. And I feel that, again, my vision is that once Luis Angel Acuna takes McNeil's job, because I think that's going to happen, it's just going to become very, very, very right-handed heavy. It's just that's the way it's going to be. And with Lindor being at the top, with Soto being near the top, your other lefty bat is Nimmo, and then it's just going to be a bunch of right-handers. So I feel like, having that lefty, and as we've talked about, if a team is going to face the Mets and match up, they want to go with guys that have that slider going away. If Eric Chavez is still our hitting coach, it's like you want a lefty to help kind of balance some of those guys out and not just have a situation where you have the bases loaded. You're Walker Buehler with the bases loaded. You're Jack Flaherty with the bases loaded. Aaron Nola, bases loaded, right-handed pitcher, and everyone's going to go chasing and strike out and strand the bases loaded. You don't want to do that anymore. You've got to capitalize on the situation. So somebody that's more left-handed would fit that. That's why, obviously everyone loves Santander. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I feel like Teoscar getting a 3-year deal at age 32 and Santander being age 30, being a switch hitter, albeit the defense not great. And yes, he could play first base, but it's not a great spot for him either. I just don't know what that market's going to look like. It could be a high asking price, and that's probably why the Mets or any other team have not really given into that quite yet. So they're kind of waiting to see what happens there. I've mentioned Randall Grichuk as a potential option, but, I think overall, I mean, we'll get into him, but Jesse Winker, he seems like the fit as a guy who's left-handed. I mean, a lot of these other guys are right-handed. I have age concerns or just overall other just fit flaws or fit issues that it just doesn't really seem like the right way to go. You kind of know a little bit more with Jesse Winker too. I mean, that's kind of one of the other things. Like you're kind of wondering, oh, what's this guy going to be like as a Met? Meanwhile, Winker, you already know that for the most part. He was obviously phenomenal in the playoffs, and he still cannot get that full playing time. So that is something that I would like to see happen. Like if the Mets do bring back Winker, I want to see him actually get that high amount of reps at DH and not having to share it with JD Martinez. Like he would actually get to play a lot. So that would be a big thing for me. And then as we know, it's like if you want to use Marte against left-handed pitching for now, unless you want to add somebody else that's right-handed against left-handed starters, that's an option too. Yeah. But I think when you're looking at these remaining guys, as like you said, a guy like Jock Peterson off the board and some others, I mean, who else is really left that would kind of fit what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, again, there is a slim pickings when it comes to what is a good ad for the Mets. Obviously, with the market being what it is, I think that Santander is a really good fit here, and I'll get into him in a second. But, I mean, I do agree, and I think that this is something that Frank emphasized a lot during the season. This is something that I've kind of carried out into the offseason. The main reason as to why this Mets offense was so 0 to 100 and inconsistent, whether they got the job done or not, was because they had so many right-handed hitters that got bullied by secondary stuff, whether it was from the left side or the right side. These guys were continuing to chase. But I would prefer it to be a left-handed guy, which, you know, lefty-righty is not something that I full-on advertise here. But when it comes to overall zone damage, a right-handed pitcher to a left-handed hitter, there definitely is more wheelhouse in that sense, especially from the arm angles that a lot of pitchers throw from. This is just kind of how this league has been adjusted to with how pitchers throw now, of the overall deception that they give you. It's not all just throwing 107 miles an hour. It helps, but it's not the 100% thing that brings in this type of dominance. Obviously, when the Mets faced a team like the Dodgers that did not have the best pitching, they still had guys that threw from some different types of arm angles that had great breaking stuff, and they were bullying our right-handed hitters with it. And you can't rely on those types of things as to where the Mets just have such a right-handed heavy lineup as of right now. Obviously, Lindor can bat left-handed as he is a switch hitter. Soto bringing him in, obviously, and then Nimmo. Those are all top of the lineup guys. So I'm not trying to have a top-heavy team, and it's overall of talking about how he fits the offense. It's not about their overall statistics of what they did elsewhere. It's all about if it is a good fit here. That's what Stearns understands, and that's why he's weighing out all of these different options of how these guys fit in. When it comes to the overall of guys like Alex Bregman or guys like, Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is a right-handed hitter, got bullied by the slider overall, but he also is somebody that I'm a little bit more open to bringing back because of how prolific he is. The only prolific right-handed hitters that I'd be willing to bring in would be prolific power hitters. And there's not many besides guys like Pete. Or, outside of that are just right-handed heavy, there's not really much out there. I mean, is there anybody else with that 35 to 40 home run power out there that is a pure right-handed bat? Like, is that it?
I mean, how many guys in general are 30 home run bats left on the market, regardless of if they're right-handed or left-handed? I mean, at this point, you just want the power no matter where it's coming from. And, with someone like Teoscar off the board, outside of Santander, and to your point, Pete, but again, Pete doesn't even solve that because he's playing first base. So that does not help the DH issue. Exactly. Like, you already had Pete Alonso here. So none of these other guys are going to provide that.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the overall look of Santander, I do want to get into him in a second. But Andrew, if you want to add to this, because I feel like you've been quiet, and I kind of have to dingle some keys in front of you sometimes because you do doze off. What do you think about the Mets dipping their toes in the outfield market? I personally think that the most likely thing is Winker, and I think that they're looking at a possibility there. But there are definitely some other things that you could plug in that maybe gives you a little bit of depth on the chart that the Mets have not had recently. What do you think?
Again, with obviously Teo is more of the DH, and again, all these guys minus the center fields, like we talk about with Michael A. Taylor and Bader, there is no good defenders of that outfit. Jerickson, Profar, defensively. So again, like it's strictly a DH thing, and again, is part of, and this is maybe a little thing where it's relating to Pete, but the Teo thing, maybe it is a smidge of leverage here, being like, again, we'll talk about Pete later, but like if there was serious offers, fine, then I'll believe it. Healy put it out, but maybe there's just a little bit like, hey, we're willing to move on, but we'll get to that later. The rest of that outfield board, if that was a serious option, then it should be pointing to Anthony Santander. Because again, like you said, we get a left-handed bat, switch hitter, there's the power protection. And again, if you bring back the other guy, hell, now you've got, 4 guys in your lineup that can hit 30-plus nukes in your lineup at the top half. Length in your lineup, Nimmo can go hit 7th. And then you could have Acuna or whatever, Siri or whoever you want to have at the bottom of the lineup, whatever. But you would have 1 through 6. You would have, and if Nimmo continues more of this power surge, we'll see what happens with the foot. You got a lengthened lineup that you can compete with Philly, Atlanta, whatever. But if they're looking at, again, Winker is there, and again, that report, bullshit or not, I mean, you would probably think the guy grew up a Mets fan. He finally got to play with the team. You would think he'd want to come back. And again, do players really have that much? I mean, maybe Jesse Winker is an intelligent guy. He's a very soft-spoken guy when you get him in front of a microphone. When he's on the field, he's a different person. But it looks like he's got a brain in his head. So maybe he does look at the market and looking for it and knows his value, unlike some people. We'll get to him later. But again, like he fits in the price rise. It's not going to be crazy. Maybe 5 to 10 million at most. I don't think you're getting that. Maybe, in that 8 to 10 range, fine. But again, it just depends. And now we're seeing the Santander, which we'll get to in a second, that we're seeing reports that he is maybe willing to take a shorter high AAV deal. The Mets should be is for any type of free agent. That's why, again, if any elite free agent is willing to do short-term high AAV, the Mets should pounce. At least put it on the table. I'm not saying you have to sign every single one of them, but if short-term, let's say it's 25 times 3, just throw it out. So 3 years, 75 million. Just throw in an offer out there. Compared to, let's say, instead of a 6 over 120, 130, again, what would you rather? I'd rather, again, I've made it clear, I'd rather pay the higher AAV with the shorter term than giving, you have the lower AAV, but you're here for fucking a decade or 2 decades. I love you, Brandon. Why couldn't we do that? But I still love you, besides the point. But again, if you're looking at that option, like, again, Profar has never been good unless he plays in San Diego. I get it. It's narrative-based, but you see the truth. He leaves San Diego, he's ass. He goes back to San Diego, he has like a 6-war season. Like, he is a San Diego Padre. I don't want anything to do with him. I know he's been on free agent boards every year. Let him re-sign with the San Diego Padres. I've always loved Randall Grichuk, but again, I mean, if Starling Marte's still here, he doesn't fit. Yeah. I mean, could you do the bootleg Arizona platoon with bringing Winker and him back? Sure, but again, Starling Marte needs to be shipped out of here for that to even become an option. And this is, I guess, to the next topic we're going to get into. Like, we're saying all these options. I'm like, this is only a 26-man roster. We only got a 4-person bench. Luis Duran is getting one of those spots. So, we have all these ideas. What if Starling Marte and Jeff McNeil, as of right now, are on the 26-man roster? Yes, the Mets can get creative, but again, you have to find a dumbass to take these contracts, even if you eat everything. So again, this kind of everyone's like,
DHs,
this, and it's like,
I mean, once
true,
yes, you, they were carrying
which I don't want to do. I don't want to do.
Which we don't want to do.
And again, I am done with
that. They did do
it.
Yeah. I mean, Grichuk provides more versatility to like make some outfield starts, whereas JD Martinez was never making a start, and like Winker occasionally. But I mean, it's a little better, but overall, it's not.
And now you're thinking
2 DHs.
And now you have Taylor, so there's already half your bench. Then you add,
I don't know. If
so like again, we're already eating
and no backup shortstop.
And no backup shortstop.
Here's the thing.
Well, that's only an emergency, Frank. Come on.
That's right.
I mean, here's the thing when it comes to Jesse Winker. I love Jesse Winker. I would think he would be a fantastic addition to this team. I feel like the energy that would be supplied between him and Jose Siri would be electric. And I would love to see that, to see them just piss off every single team. But again, that's more for entertainment reasons. Let's just say, that can be stored for another day. But when it comes to the overall thinking of bringing back Jesse Winker, where he's most likely going to be playing DH. If there is an injury, he most likely goes to one of the corners. Hopefully there isn't an injury in right field because we just committed 15 years to that. But when it comes to the overall thought of Winker, I would love to have him back. I think that his plate approach, I think his plate philosophy is something that this team needs desperately from the left side, and it really showed in the playoffs of what they really, really needed.
They have it with Soto now.
Yeah, exactly. And it was definitely something that they needed in regards to that. But when it comes to Winker coming in here, we know he's not the greatest defender, obviously, but he can give you the flexibility in a pinch. Something that we felt about, Jock Peterson or whatever a few years ago. Now he's more of a DH. Here's the thing. Here's my fear of bringing in somebody like Jesse Winker or bringing back somebody like Jesse Winker. I feel like if you bring in Jesse Winker, the DH platoon is going to be him and Starling Marte, which I don't want. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. I think it is such a not really a sunk cost, but it really is just such a counterproductive way to look at this lineup after signing somebody like Juan Soto. I understand he's here for 15 years. I have said it multiple times. You don't need to just build a complete all-star team like the Dodgers have because Juan Soto's here for 15 years. You don't need to go completely insane and go for a $600 million payroll. But when it comes to the overall look of Marte, we've talked about it before. He is 36 years old. He has played half a season for back-to-back years. The only advantages that you get from Starling Marte recently have been hitting left-handed pitching, not hitting for power against left-handed pitching, so hitting singles against left-handed pitching, not using his lower body to steal that many bases anymore, even though, sure, he'll steal one back and forth, but he's not the guy who wreaked havoc on the base pass that he was in Oakland or Pittsburgh. So he doesn't use his lower half in that regard. He has, let's say, a strong arm in right field, which he's not going to be able to use because Juan Soto is there. He has no range in right field. And he's not young enough to actually improve. He's done. He's hit his defensive ceiling now. So basically, you are paying $20 million to Starling Marte to hit left-handed pitching, hit singles off of left-handed pitching for half of the year. So it's just stupid to me. It really is just stupid. And again, they signed him to that contract. It was guaranteed 4 years. But I would much rather have him off of this roster because I think he gives a little bit more value off of this roster than he does here. I'm not talking about the Starling Marte. Again, I feel like people get this misconstrued when I talk about Starling Marte. I am not talking about the Starling Marte that was an all-star in 2022. I'm not talking about the Starling Marte that was a well-skilled player coming out of the gate who was great in Pittsburgh, who had, bounce back years in, Arizona, who was great for the A's there. I'm not talking about that Starling Marte anymore. That Starling Marte is gone. He doesn't exist anymore. He is ever since all of that happened, that 2022 season, which is not that long ago, but it's a decent margin. He's had core surgery. He's had double groin surgery. He has had hamstring issues. He has had so many different IL stints, which again was the main concern from when he signed that contract 4 years ago or 3 years ago. So it does not make sense to be giving $20 million, even though if it is 1 year, for somebody that limited in that regard. And I know we talked about a guy limited and very low in value in guys like Daniel Vogelbach or Darren Ruff, but those guys were making what, 1 million, 2 million? Starling Marte is taking up 20 million of your payroll. Don't you want to, like, I don't know, get a bat like Anthony Santander with part of that 20 million off of your payroll? I would like to do that. Now, of course, like we said, with the Mets dabbling in the outfield / DH / bat market, in addition to possibly bringing back Pete Alonso or the Bregman rumors, we talked about other guys in this outfield market, and that kind of points to Anthony Santander. Andrew made a point earlier saying that he's starting to get interest on short-term deals with high AAV. Now, looking at Anthony Santander at face value, maybe it does not look like a complete hitter. Maybe it does not look like a great hitter. But overall, as someone with the approach that he does have of hitting your way on, I do think that it's perfectly, I think that it's definitely protected well in this lineup, especially if you have somebody like Nimmo batting behind him. And even, to be honest, to a certain extent, Jeff McNeil, even if you do have him batting behind there. Obviously, I don't want Jeff McNeil here, but again, the bottom part of the lineup probably could protect him a little bit in regards to that, especially from the top with Juan Soto, who has eyes of a robot. Now, when it comes to overall Anthony Santander, he's coming off of a career year. 44 home runs, 102 runs batted in, 129 weighted runs created plus, OPS over 800. And he's definitely going to get paid on this market. After seeing what Teoscar Hernandez got after a great year, Anthony Santander is a little bit younger. When you look at the overall batted ball data from him, it's well above average. He hits the ball hard. He pulls fly balls. He actually hits the ball on the ground less than any hitter in all of baseball. That's including guys like Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge, guys like that. So when he pulls the ball a lot from both sides, he's a switch hitter, and he can have that type of power. I'd say that is definitely something that can benefit the middle of your lineup in a team like the Mets. Now, from the left-handed side, which I think is why he is a perfect fit, again, from the left side, he gives you a lot more prolific power compared to the right side. With the right side, and I know a lot of people talk about him with runners on base, and they talk about him situationally and how his on-base percentage is too low. When it comes to him overall as a right-handed hitter, definitely better situationally than a left-handed hitter. Left-handed hitter, he gives you more power. Right-handed hitter, he's a little bit more situationally in that regard. Obviously, he doesn't hit for as much average as a right-handed hitter, but it seems like he's a little bit more disciplined, walking a little bit more. Now, when it comes to the overall on-base percentage, which I know is a concern from a lot of Mets fans, Easy saying his on-base percentage is not good, listing out what he has done. Listen, overall, when it comes to on-base percentage, that's pretty much average. Over 300 is average these days. He's a little bit above average in terms of overall on-base percentage. 8.7 walk rate, strikes out less than 20% last year. He never really has struck out that much. He hits his way on. He ain't Javi Baez, all right? Let's relax, everyone. He ain't Javi Baez. He's not just going to be swinging at anything. So when you come to a guy like Anthony Santander, yes, he does chase a decent amount, and it is a little bit concerning. Let's just say that. But when it comes to the overall look of what he needs, or maybe of what this team needs, or maybe protecting him in this lineup compared to maybe an Orioles lineup that, they have young hitters there, even though they have developed hitters well, they have young hitters and they are going to chase. You have a lot of guys on this Mets team that can take a lot of pitches. You have a lot of guys who can give you competitive ABs. So a guy like Anthony Santander, he can hit his way on and definitely produce in that way. Do I believe that he will hit 44 home runs if he were to sign with the Mets every single season? No. But another guy there with Soto there, Lindor there, whether it is Alonso or not, one thing I will say, easily, he is giving you 25 to 30 home runs, which he has been able to do for these last 3 years. I know 2023, he hit 29 home runs, 28 in the regular season, 1 in the postseason. Sorry, but 30-plus home runs the last 3 seasons at pace. He's always healthy as well. He's been healthy. You never know, but he's been healthy as well. I think it's a perfect fit, personally. Again, not as the main guy to protect somebody like Soto or whatever, but a secondary guy behind, let's say, bringing back somebody like Pete Alonso. I personally think it is a perfect fit, and I don't really wrap my head around that much of the low OBP from a guy like Anthony Santander, who swings at a lot of strikes and hits the ball hard and, overall maximizes his power by pulling fly balls. And when you talk about, the overall situations he's made for this big stage overall in his career, almost an 800 OPS in high leverage situations, 41 extra base hits, 27 home runs. We know that he puts on a big show in the World Baseball Classic. I have been wanting Santander on my team for, let's say, 4 or 5 years. We have been attached to him for a while. We have been attached to the hip. We love Anthony Santander. Some of us more than others. Guilty. I think this is a perfect 5-hole hitter for you. And I think that if he's willing to take more closer to the DH money or the shorter term deal, this is a no-brainer for me. I don't know if, again, people might disagree, might think Bregman, he's a World Series champion. He played for the Astros and he's got average. Great. Anthony Santander is a perfect fit. I'm sorry, it has been a perfect fit to the Mets lineup for a long, long, long time. Andrew, I will go to you first. I mean, I think that this is perfect and is something that I would 100% go for. And with him being a switch hitter, completely negates anything of Starling Marte playing for the Mets in 2025, which is pretty much something that has to happen, in my opinion, if you are serious about competing, signing Juan Soto and adding him to your lineup.
Yeah, again, it's a perfect DH. I know we saw some people talking in the chat of, oh, he's just Kyle Schwarber. I mean, Kyle Schwarber's a good damn ball player. I don't care. He hit for better average this year, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, he got out of those 205. Yeah. But you look at this is kind of what when Schwarber signed with Philly.
Yeah,
he got 4 years,
before
$79 million.
Before you continue, Andrew, let's stop using Kyle Schwarber as an insult. Okay, that is not something that is used as an insult. You can use good Joey Gallo.
I love it. Yeah.
No. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about guys in the chat, Mets fans. Stop using Kyle Schwarber as an insult, okay? Because he plays for the Phillies. Kyle Schwarber is one of the best postseason hitters of all time, okay? One of the best postseason hitters of all time. And his approach is something that you should aspire to have. Obviously, maybe a little bit more hitting for average, maybe getting on base a little bit more, but he also walks a lot. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear Schwarber slander. And let me tell you right now, if they end up not getting Anthony Santander and Schwarber becomes a free agent, if they don't extend him there in Philly,
next year we're pushing that narrative.
To add him. Okay, yep. So I don't want to hear it. I will get even more toxic with Kyle Schwarber if they don't get Anthony Santander. Andrew, continue. Go ahead.
But yeah, again, if you're looking at $20 million over 4 years, I mean, Schwarber signed at 29. Tony Tater's is 30. So, again, you're getting, and again, if you need him to, you could stick him in left field. Yes, you got Brandon Nimmo, but again, with Brandon Nimmo's plantar fasciitis, weird feet, giving him more days off throughout the year, you could stick Tony in left and just be all right. You got 2 absolute butchers. You're gonna have to score 8 runs anyway. He can hit a 3-run homer later in the game. We don't care about the defense. And again, what have we been talking about ever since the damn DH was put in? It's a position for dudes that hit fat nukes. This dude hits fat nukes. I don't care about the 300 on base. Hit 30 homers. I don't care. And again, it would loosen up the roster. Marte, If he's got to be here, it's one more year, and he's going after this year. The decrepit gerbil, whatever, we'll figure that out. But then at least if you can get rid of those two guys, you open up the roster spots for the youth. If it's Marussia, Acuna, Jet, Brett Beatty for some reason still here. He may be here. Who knows? But at least it opens up the 26-man roster and stop carrying two people for one spot. And the fact, like you said, switch hitter.
Yeah.
You could put Fried on both sides. It would eliminate all of the clutter. I can't say the other word because, God forbid, we started a riot last week. So I'll just say fluff because, God forbid, I can't say the other word. Blubber of this roster. Like, it fills too many holes. And again, we get our version of Kyle Schwarber. Oh, he doesn't walk. Who really cares? He's still going to hit you 35 homers. And like, unlike...
He walks a decent amount.
And yes, and here you go. Now I'm going to open back the wound up. Unlike that fluffy guy, Anthony Santander hits his homers when your team needs it. Not, well, it's 9-2 and there's a polar bear bomb. Like, no, Santander does it when you need, and not just, well, off Devin, he got one off Devin Williams. We will praise his name for that. But everything else, when you need him to hit the big shot, he doesn't hit the big shot. Tony Taters hits those big shots.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that it's, again, when it comes to the overall approach that they need, I think that when it comes to how it can be protected in the lineup, I think it can be. And maybe I am wrong, but I think that the Mets have a lot of guys that don't chase, that they can have guys who hit their way on and swing at strikes. Again, I think that when it comes to the overall combination of what, free agent bat duo that you prefer, I asked you guys in the chat, and I will direct this right to Frank. Obviously, I think I know what his answer is, but again, of looking at it from all of these different combinations, because I know that Frank likes to be a little bit more articulated in that way. I asked everyone, what duo would you prefer of free agent bats? And it had to do with three players, so basically like a rock, paper, scissors type of thing of three combinations. Alonso first base, Bregman third base. 44% of you want that. 27% of you are saying Alonso first base, Santander DH. 24% of you are saying Bregman third base, Santander DH. And then 5% of you are saying, I want none of the three whatsoever. Or maybe you just want one of them out of the three. Again, none or one of these or whatever. So, when it comes to the overall combination, number 2, Alonso at first, Santander at DH. That is what I am going with. But, again, Bregman won 2 championships, and he is so fucking magical. And we need an all-star team. Frank, I'll go to you. In this combination, do you agree with that? Of like, it's more practical for overall depth in the lineup. Alonso Santander, or maybe it's Alonso Bregman, maybe it's Bregman Santander. And then, Vientos moves to first or whatever, that whole
there's a lot of different ways that they could go with this. I feel like with Santander, the way I look at it is also like, what are the contracts? Because I feel like that's something else that's also relevant when we talk about how that affects maybe a pursuit of a starting pitcher at the deadline, maybe some bullpen help, or just other future moves that you want to do. Maybe extending some of your guys to long-term deals. Mark Vientos comes to mind, and players like that. So how does the decisions that you make now impact your future financially? So for me, how is Santander marketing himself? Is he marketing himself as a corner outfielder, or is he marketing himself as a designated hitter? That's a big piece, first of all, because those are two totally different markets. Because corner outfielders, listen, I know it's an extreme, but the Mets did sign a corner outfielder for 15 years, $765 million. Now, Santander is not Juan Soto, but corner outfielders can get a lot of money. It's something that does happen in Major League Baseball. Now with DHs, people are a little more like, it's more reasonable, I would say. I mean, it's kind of tough. The only comparisons I really can make is like Castellanos and Schwarber. But even then, those guys they got signed and started in the outfield, and then like Schwarber moved to DH once they figured out that like this is just not gonna work. This is too much all over the place. So they had to kind of figure it out. So it's something that doesn't really happen too often. But I know what third basemen get, and they get a lot of money. And I've said it before, but like, I just don't think Bregman is that guy anymore. It's kind of, we're talking about Marte, like, sure, like 2019 cheating Bregman, like 8 WAR, 9 WAR, of course. He's not that guy anymore. He's like half of that player at this point in his career. And now going past age 30. And you know that Bregman wants like 5 to 6 years. He's just not that guy offensively. So I don't think that's a great move. I feel like right now we want to look more so specifically at DH. I'll see what happens with Vientos. I'll let him develop it and all that. But, the way I see it, I would like to keep Pete. I mean, again, I'd like to keep him, but I don't have to keep him. I don't have to do anything too crazy because that's a different market. The first base market. Guys don't make all that much money. You don't see a $300 million first baseman. It has not happened yet. So, that's a whole different situation. Like, third baseman get more than first baseman. So, that's another thing to consider. And, again, I know what Alonso is as a Met. I have no idea what Bregman is as a Met. I have no idea what Bregman is as a non-Astro, not playing, and like I said, a very hitter-friendly ballpark in Houston. So, I don't know how that goes. But I feel like with Santander, as far as we talk about like the fit that this Mets team needs, a switch hitter that hits 44 home runs is a lot better of a fit than another right-handed hitter in Alex Bregman hitting 26 home runs. And you want to look at but the batting average, but even Bregman's OBP 315. Why is nobody complaining about that? We're so quick to talk about Santander's on-base percentage, but Bregman at 315.
He's poised. He's a poised hitter. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Maybe because he knew it was coming from 2017 to 2019.
That's a very good point. So, 313 is not something to write home about. And he's a guy OPS under 800. Santander was over 800. So, I don't really understand where that's coming from. So, I definitely think that, when it comes down to it, we talk about what this team needs. I said the switch hitter, more of a power hitter. That definitely is something that intrigues me a lot more.
I just can't get on it. Like, I just can't get on the Alex Bregman thing. I've already expressed what I feel about the whole Alex Bregman situation. And listen, I think that, when you're talking about the DH type of thing where the Phillies signed Schwarber and Castellanos, I'm hoping that the market kind of dies down a little bit with Santander, where he becomes to market himself as a DH, as to where he takes one of these short-term deals. Maybe he does. Maybe it's 3 years or 4 years. I think that, again, it all really has to do with the fit. Bregman, I don't think, is a good fit in regards to that. But when it comes to the overall of the Mets looking at, a fit in their lineup, you also can see it from the perspective of the Phillies, because a lot of people don't really talk about the Phillies in what their thought was in bringing in guys like Schwarber and Castellanos. And it has kind of worked. They've been contenders for multiple years now. They have gone back a little bit because they've gotten a little older. But again, when it comes to the overall Phillies right now, it makes sense. It was a good fit for them with Castellanos and, Harper there, of course, being the left-handed bat that he is, because yes, defense is something that is, not the strong suit of that Phillies team, and they definitely filled that in as they kept going along. But when it comes to the overall of Alex Bregman and, all these other pieces, Alex Bregman fits really well in that Astros lineup. It's a very hitter-friendly ballpark for Alex Bregman, where he can just pull fly balls over the left field Crawford boxes or whatever you're looking at. When it comes to guys like Schwarber and Castellanos, defense for them, CBP is a small ballpark. There's not really that much ground to cover if they're playing defense either way. Not to mention them being home run hitters. and Philly being this big home run hitters park. So when it comes to the overall of Citi Field, which is known as more of a pitcher's park and more of a pull hitters park, you need those pull hitters that have a little bit more raw power tools. Anthony Santander has that. Pete Alonso has that. He's been doing that for the last 6 years here. Guys like Alex Bregman, I don't know if he does have that. And I'm not willing to give him 6 years to possibly find out. I'm not willing to give him $200 million to find out. Yes, Anthony Santander, when it comes to the overall ballpark in Baltimore, I know that they've changed the dimensions there.
Yeah, they made it harder.
Yeah, they made
it more difficult
for right-handed hitters, right? For right-handed hitters,
he's a switch hitter.
Yeah, true.
And the Mets moved
again,
their
it's
field
a paradise
in
for left-handed
to help
bats
left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
Like,
it is kind of a paradise for left-handed bats, but overall, like.
And how's Houston for right-handed
I'm
hitters?
talking about it.
How's that match up?
With right-handed hitters
For Houston.
With Houston, that's a right-handed hitter's bandbox. Like that's basically just like poking things over the wall. But again, I'm not trying to say that all park factors are something that ruins and takes away careers. But when you're also looking at the Orioles ballpark, I mean, the overall park factors of what you can see, if you want to look at it from just like strictly StatCast at face value, let's say they're not a hitter's ballpark. They are 19th in overall offensive production and elevation and par factors. And that's just since 2022. Obviously, they're bringing the wall a little bit more again. But overall, when it comes to a guy like Anthony Santander, I think that his type of hitting talents are easy to protect in this lineup. When it comes to a guy like Alex Bregman, I just don't like what he's looking at going forward. I don't like him at, in regards to third base, because I don't think he has a great arm compared to somebody like Briantos.
They're the same age. Actually, all three of these guys are the same age between Alonso, Santander, and Bregman. And it's like with Bregman and Alonso, we've actually seen declines, whereas with Santander, that hasn't happened yet. If anything,
No.
4 to 4 home runs is improvement. So
actually,
that's one of the
Bregman's
things
going to be
we talk about.
31 next year. Alonso and Santander are going to be 30. Different situation. I know.
Yeah,
it's
but what I'm saying is that we're talking
about
about like long-term deals and projecting, because once you're past 30, it's not about what you did before or like what you're going to do. It's like, okay, well, like how does this shake out once you hit age 30 and on? And if
we're talking about peak in 30. I saw a lot of people. I saw a lot of people. In regards to the age, we were talking about the age with Alonso last week. And I feel like it was being misconstrued in that, where we're like, okay, once a guy turns 30, his career's done. No, we don't think that. That's not what we're saying.
Done, but
we're talking about the trajectory of their career.
There is a steady
of what you can
decline,
project
and
forward.
then
Yeah.
For me, once the guy hits 35, then it's like a big decline, and then it's just all downhill from
Not
there.
everyone can be Joey
Martinez.
Votto.
We're seeing
Not
it now
everyone
with
can be
Starling
Joey
Marte.
Votto.
Not Joey Votto. I mean, Joey Votto.
No one can be
is
Joey
gonna
Votto
He's
again.
going to go to the Hall of Fame. Like, Hall of Famers may like surpass that, and being a Citizens Bank, I mean that helps a little bit too. We're talking about
that
ballparks.
does. Yeah.
But I mean, and he's just a special hitter, especially in today's game, an old school guy. But overall, like that's just how it goes with most players. Like you hit your peak years are like 28, 29, 30.
Yeah.
And
that's
past
typically
30,
again.
There's that steady decline. I mean, that's you just
Again,
look at,
like I said
everybody.
at the top of the show, typically that's what we're looking at. Age 30, usually we talk about the next trajectory of your career, of, from where the peak is, what can he project to do that? There's anomalies too. We know that JD Martinez has been good in his advanced age. Joey Votto, we're talking about this
in the Dodgers.
Yeah, in the efficient way, like I said, not every single time age is a 100% factor, but overall in the efficient way, 3 times out of 10, if you want to talk about it in batting average sense, 3 times out of 10 is a good hitter. So you're looking at this in an efficient way, projecting in an efficient way, not being completely perfect, because who knows? Maybe Santander comes here and he's terrible. Who knows? But 3 times out of 10, is it a good fit? Now, as for the overall chat, I know a lot of people have been coming in with a lot of different comments. and I know my co-hosts have been ignoring them and not starring them and not doing their jobs. This home run hitters guy in here, I know that he was in the Till Mets Do Us Part chat earlier. I saw him. He was doing a great job of trolling everyone. Listen, he may be trolling, but hey, I kind of like him. I like him. All right, he's got moxie in him. I like it. But anyways, as for things like this, Ramirez coming in here saying, Bregman makes the team more stable. I think he does on paper, but I feel like going forward, it's just not the best investment in my opinion. It just isn't. Like, I think it's something that you need to look at as a fit for the roster or a fit for the lineup or a fit on the team. To me, again, with this whole Bregman nonsense, even on a short-term deal, I still would not take him personally. I still would not do it because I do believe in the young guy such as Mark Vientos, and Mark Vientos has earned his right to be the third baseman on opening day for this team. He has. Whether you want to factor in Ronnie Mauricio or not, I don't think he's going to be healthy for opening day, and I think he's going to start in AAA. But we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. It all depends on who is struggling. Maybe second base has an opening because we have a guy who stinks there. But when it comes to the overall of Bregman, or the overall experience, the overall anything, once again, and I'm not trying to discredit anything that went on with Alex Bregman of him being a perfect fit in Houston or whatever. But when it comes to the overall look, if you're talking about experience, if you're talking about big stage, what did Mark Vientos do in the postseason last year? They did not get to Game 6 of the National League Championship Series without Mark Vientos. And yes, maybe it's some kind of rookie fluke or young fluke or whatever. How about I raise you another one? Randy Arozarena being a great postseason hitter from his rookie season. I mean, again, when it comes to Mark Vientos, he's the starting third baseman. He's earned it. He's hit himself here. And if he does struggle, you look at other different options, whether you're looking at it from the overall aspect of Ronnie Mauricio, whether you look at it from the trade deadline, it's just better. He projects a lot better going forward. He's young. And once again, like I said last episode, a 25-year-old DH is just stupid. It really is just stupid. The closest thing to a young DH or whatever, what was that? It was like Yerman Mercedes. Where is he now?
I mean, Jordan Alvarez is a pretty good
Jordan
DH.
Alvarez. Yeah, exactly.
They're pretty good. Just put
even then, he plays left field.
But he still plays first base.
But
and
he
left
should.
field. Like
But he shouldn't.
He shouldn't be because of
shouldn't.
the injuries again.
Well, no, and he
But
sucks
he
at
has
it.
the easy
been
left
healthy.
field to play in Houston, so he gets away with it.
Yeah,
He's not really playing.
exactly. Wow. Oh my God. Now, if you're talking about Jordan in City Field, he's a DH. Again, that's a lot of ground to cover.
Hey,
again,
I mean, he almost killed Jake Myers that one time.
Again, I mean, don't even get me started. Okay, Jordan's a Met forever. He will be a Met. Anyways, but when it comes to the overall power in this lineup, they don't just need one guy to protect Juan Soto or a guy to bat behind Juan Soto, because they do need a cleanup hitter, and I do think that is going to be Pete Alonso, and I do think that Pete Alonso will end up coming back, and again, then you add something secondary in that regard. But I do think that they just need to have a little bit more deeper of power to somewhat match up to some of the star power of these other teams, such as the Dodgers, who eliminated you in the National League Championship Series this year. Again, you just never know. And I think that is something that they need to look at. It's not just Juan Soto's here, we're all good, bring back Alonso, that's it. There's still other things that they do need to do to make this team deeper and upgrade this team, maybe make it a little bit younger. Let's just say that. And Starling Marte is not in that formula. Jeff McNeil isn't, but that's a different story. But when it comes to the overall lineup, again, I think that it just needs to be a little bit deeper in terms of the power, not just power upside, but power, prolific power, like just the overall guaranteed, let's pencil this guy in for 20, 25, 30 home runs. Like, that's how I think that's how they need to look at it. And again, Alvarez, another guy here who we know has some power, and we know that he could, in a full season, probably give you 30 at his highest potential because he's so young. But again, another right-handed hitter that can get bullied by those outside sliders. Like, that's what I mean. Alvarez is great or whatever, but they do need some of these complementary pieces. Mark Vientos chases a lot of these low sliders. Jose Siri chases at everything. Okay? All of these other pieces, they need to protect this lack of discipline. They need to protect this righty-righty, right-handed hitter that can't reach the outside sliders with how pitchers throw now from certain arm slots. They just need to look at it from there because they can't just rely on, well, my pitch is going to come and I'm just going to dunk it into center field, and that's how we're going to continue to score runs here. The Mets' overall offense last year was still good. It was still a plus. They still had good offense. They had great contributions from, a deep part of the lineup that we haven't seen for a long time, from them being top heavy before David Stearns got in here. Great. But to sustain that, Jesus Christ, to sustain that, they do need to make this a little bit deeper. Again, the Mets offense last year had two different levels, 0 and 100. You can't live like that. You just can't live like that. Whatever worked in 2024, that doesn't mean it's going to work in 2025. Just saying. Again, guys, if you're heating up in the chat, I don't know. Frank's probably moderating it at this current moment. Relax. Again, relax. We're speaking a little bit louder just to put some more emphasis on it, but this isn't.
They're not even
aggressive.
mad at us. They're mad at each other. Like, let's all just.
They're mad at each other,
just because
guys.
we have different opinions about baseball players.
Bro,
It's
get in the ring.
It's still the holiday season.
Just get in the box
Kumbaya,
ring. Settle it that way.
Kumbaya. Relax. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay to have opinions. It's all right. If we don't get to every single one of them, it's whatever. But Jesus Infante saying, what if the Mets can't sign Alonso? What are you doing signing? What are you going to do if you sign Alex Bregman and Santander? I mean, I personally don't think that the window is so closed in regards to Alonso right now. When it comes to Alonso, we can get into Alonso if you guys want to, because I know that this is the hot topic. Again, when it comes to Pete Alonso, last week got a little heated, let's just say, from the chat. Everybody was taking some things to heart, and I feel like, there are some things that all of us probably should have done better in regards to that conversation. Andrew, I will literally slug you through this screen. Shut up. Anyways, when it comes to the Pete Alonso discussion, the latest right now pretty much is a staring contest. Now, as for the overall talk of a reunion with Pete Alonso and bringing him back, I do want to get into some of the details of recent, since the last time that we had our show. Now, some of the reports, they're little, some of them are rumors, and we will get into this as well as we possibly can and try to touch everything, because I know that there's a lot of strong opinions regarding the Pete Alonso discussion. Now, as for John Heyman, earlier this week, he said that there is a sizable gap in talks at the moment between the Mets and Alonso, but that does not mean that he is gone. But the Mets have closed those big gaps before. Only that no quick deal appears at hand. So Again, that doesn't mean the Mets are out of the mix for Pete and telling him to fuck off. It's not happening. John Heyman also went later on that week saying on MLB Network saying that the Giants, the Mariners, the Blue Jays, and the Mets are currently in the mix for Pete Alonso. Now, this is the entire thing that went haywire on social media this week. That being, of course, the man who drops all of the annoyance bombs, that being Carlos Baerga, who was a former infielder. He played for the Mets, right? I'm pretty sure he played for the Mets. Yeah. And this is just a rumor. And I'm telling you, this is a rumor, highlighting it in red, saying that this is a rumor. Do not take this with a full-on hammer to your window, hammer to your wall. Don't go crazy on this one. But Pete Alonso apparently, reportedly, possibly rejected a 3-year, $90 million contract offer from the Mets. He's reportedly looking for $175 million to $200 million on the free agent market. And, you know, Carlos Baerga said that on X and on Instagram, putting it out. I don't know what all of these rumors are, if they are legit or not. But when it comes to the overall feel of Alonso, of how you look at this entire market, taking in all of these quotes from the Giants to the 390 that was maybe offered to him, to the Mets being far apart with him. Frank, I will start with you. Unraveling everything from the last week, moving on. Again, I don't know what you guys are going to touch on. You can go as long as you want. There's a lot to be thinking about with this. Some of it is odd. Some of it doesn't make sense. And some of it just leaves you wondering, what the hell does Pete Alonso want at this point? Frank?
I still find that I just go back to the report that what the Mets offered him and he declined it, and not having his greatest season, obviously. Just, they're not beating that deal. And I just find that them saying no to it, that Boris, really Boris, is just too stubborn to admit that they were wrong not taking the contract that the Mets offered them during whatever it was, during the season, before the season, whatever it was. By not accepting that and saying, no, we're going to see what the market is, and then the market has not beat that offer, they're like, oh, what are we going to do now? Because they would just kind of look silly and desperate if they just take something that's maybe less than what the Mets offer them. Because, you know, the only team that really, I guess, could strike a fear maybe is the Giants, because I don't see the Mariners actually playing, like, you know, what needs to be done. I don't see them going to that level. So that's just what I've seen based off how they operate. I don't see them going to the level it would take to get Pete Alonso away from the Mets. Now, Toronto, they're offering a ton of money to everybody, and nobody wants it. Corbin Burns said, I'll take less money to go to Arizona. I mean, and we've heard this, that nobody wants Toronto's money. And they have the whole Vlad situation going on there anyway, and that's a whole financial thing in and of itself.
They have Bo as well.
You got Bo, who, I mean, again, those guys might get traded. Like, I don't know what... I don't think Toronto even knows what they're doing, to be honest. Like, they are just all over the place. So, I don't count them as a credible threat either. So, if you're saying it's between the Mets and the Giants have already... I feel like I said this before, but already given out their highest contract that they ever gave out to Willy Adames. And while it was a good contract, it wasn't crazy. To see them, you know, kind of dip into that twice.
They also extended Matt Chapman.
And they extended Matt Chapman. So they've already spent a good amount of money on the infield. Do they go that route again and then, you know, try to increase and get Pete Alonso too for a big dollar amount? Maybe. I mean, listen, they've offered big money to Arson Judge. He didn't take it. They've offered, big money to Correa, and, you know, that didn't really work out. So, you know, there's been a lot of different things that have happened in San Francisco too. But I feel like for the Mets, they don't want to end up in a Conforto situation where, you know, you had a fair deal, you didn't take it, you took a short-term deal, and you haven't been quite to get back what you had already been offered, so to speak. So, it's kind of like we said, it's a waiting game. The Mets are not just going to overpay because they're not saying yes to what the Mets are offering. And that's why there's a large gap. I mean, I still feel that the Mets are probably offering something similar to what they already did, and they're just looking for a lot more than that. And from the first base position, I don't see why. I just don't understand their thought process. Because like we've said, we've looked at the Freeman contract. We've looked at the Goldschmidt contract, the Olsen contract. And Pete Alonso is not better than a couple of those guys. So why would the Mets pay more? Especially with how he played this season. He has not shown that he would be worth more than what those guys got. So I still feel that they're just too stubborn in the Boras camp to admit that they were wrong, declining the offer the Mets gave them before, and then settling maybe for something less or about the same.
Yeah, I mean, even talking about teams as possible threats, which again, it takes one team to disrupt everything that has been going on, and completely take Alonso. And listen, I'm not going to the ends of the earth for this guy. And again, there is one thing about San Francisco that probably would go into the Mets' favor. Yes, Pete is a natural, pure power hitter. Great raw power, 80 grade power, some of the best in the league. Not the best, but some of the best in the league. When it comes to Pete Alonso, and when it comes to his former teammate, I guess it's going to be former teammate because he's most likely going to leave, JD Martinez, let's not forget the impression that JD Martinez had on Pete Alonso throughout the year, obviously on a lot of the other hitters, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, other guys in that. Do we not remember JD Martinez when he signed late, basically publicly going after the Giants saying, their ballpark ain't for me. That ain't for me. That's just not a thing. Point. So again, I'm not saying that the Giants are just a complete,
they did just
here.
Sign Adames, who is right-handed, and Chapman extended. They're all right-handed. So, not all right-handed hitters are
Is it a
same,
good fit? Again, I don't know. Buster Posey, is it a good fit? Because he's their new president of baseball operations. Andrew, where are you going to take this one? I to be honest, guys, if you don't want to hear what Andrew has to say, if you are a Pete
get the hell out
fan
of here.
club, I mean, Andrew, here's the thing. There's different directions that you can go to it. I think we all agree, Pete Alonso, there's a limit for pursuing this guy. There is a limit. And I think everybody can agree that, whether he's homegrown or not. If you believe he's going to get $200 million or believe he deserves $200 million, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you because, to be honest, that entire claim, it's damage beyond repair. Andrew, I will go to you. What are you seeing? I am praying that none of our addresses get posted online. What do you have on that massive head of yours?
All right, so I'm not even gonna go with Pete first. I'm going to brutally destroy Scott Boras first, because who was the guy that put out that crock of shit list of teams? Oh, it's John Heyman. So I'll even break down the teams even more than what you guys did. So let's start with the Seattle Mariners, a team that I am very close with. A team that I know has $15 million to spend this offseason. That is their budget. $15 million, and not willing to trade Luis Castillo for dump it. No, they want actual, and Jerry DiPoto and all that. So I'm going to expect the Seattle Mariners who have been hell-bent, they're spending $15 million this offseason to go give Pete Alonso $23.4 million. Okay, good one, John. Good one, Scott. Let's go to Toronto. Let's go to my favorite team that loves me, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Them ham-eating motherfuckers. Well, don't they got a first baseman? Don't they have a first baseman that they need to pay? I get they have Alejandro Clark hitting cleanup right now for him. I understand. They ain't got nobody in that goddamn lineup. Bo's going, and he's going to go be a Brave next year and probably go back to his prime and piss us off. And then Vlad's going to come play for my team. That's why, again, I'm okay letting Pete Alonso work. I'll go get the younger, better one. But no, he's not homegrown, even though Brandon Nimmo's got more WAR. I don't really care. And then the San Francisco Giants, like we said, go hit in a cavernous ballpark, which, again, this is going to piss off Mets fan, but Pete Alonso's got great right center field power. Let's go to AT&T Ballpark where it's like 474 feet with a 50-foot wall to go up right center field power. That's a great fit.
Triples Alley, come on now. Pete always bringing those lead feet down the second base line.
That tubby dinosaur running for triples. That's crazy. So again, I got Scott Boras. That's a hell of a market, Scott. God, I'm terrified if I want Pete Alonso back on the Mets. Oh my God, $15 million of Seattle and the Giants and the Maple Leaf guys. Yeah, I'm so scared. Good one, Scott. This again, we'll get to now. I guess more in the Scott slander. I was mean last week, so I'll leave the polar bear. I'll more just focus on Scott Boras. But again, he's not getting that contract back, and he can try to gauge this interest. Unless, a $15 million 1-year deal, which guarantees Seattle's just going to go back and sign Justin Turner. So they're gone. The Giants have Bryce Eldridge, who is one of the fastest rising prospects in overall in baseball. He's probably playing first base and a left-handed bat to put with those two right-handed bat. I guess prospect suspects, I understand. But with the Giants that, nobody usually takes their money, they need to develop their own players, and they would like to give Bryce Eldridge that opportunity in the next year or two. So yeah, there's that. And again, Toronto, they don't even exist at this point. Nobody wants to go. Freaking Russell Martin and Josh Donaldson are suing them because they're not getting their money, because their money's not real. Besides the point. Now we'll get to Pete. Like we've said, I'm the biggest Pete Alonso fan. Everyone's saying I'm a closet Alonso fan. Love Pete. Besides the point. If he's here, fine. Come back. We'll wait until February. You'll sign a 1-year deal, Bellinger type deal, and you're going to have to come back. Tuck between your legs. I'm sorry, me no have no brain, me no read the market, my bad. I'll come back, hit 30 homers, and then try to test it again. Oh, let's test it again with Vlad Jr. hitting the market, and Josh Naylor hitting the market. Yeah, Pete, if you couldn't be when you were the guy in the market, yeah, you're going to go get paid with Josh Naylor and Vlad Jr. on the first base market. That's a great idea. You played yourself, and like Frank said, get over yourself. Tell Scott, you know what? We got a lot of poo on our face. Call the Mets up. Let's take the Met offer. I'm comfortable. They have good restaurants in New York City, and I can go hit fourth behind Juan Soto, and he'll maybe make the playoffs. Or he's just going to continue to be a little greedy polar bear, and he's going to end up like that polar bear in Texas meme. He signs with the Minnesota Twins. Even though they don't have any money, they just pull something out of nowhere. And again, it could be. Again, we have these teams. One day, maybe the Athletics. You know what? They're spending money all of a sudden. And imagine
they are quite the threat, man.
And think about it. And I know Keith was trolling on Twitter, but think about it. You go to a minor league ballpark in your walk here, go hit 70 homers. That's not a terrible idea, but he's not going to do that. So again, don't expect this getting done anytime soon. This is what we're going to have to do, kind of like we did with Soto. At least Soto got it done quick. We still got probably 2 months of this. So I got 2 more months to make fun of this guy. And then when he re-signs, I'll shake his hand and we'll go win a World Series. Until that happens, polar bear in Texas, Scott Boras is an idiot. And you know what? We got Juan Soto, so I really don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, Scott Boras, he's had his fails. He has had his successes. He's a high roller. That's what you get right there. And that's the main reason as to why we knew that Pete Alonso thought highly of himself when he hired Scott Boras. And then after getting that report that he rejected 7 years, $158 million, we knew that he was looking for more than that. And it's not anything to do with Scott Boras, to be honest. I mean, right from the beginning, from the root of the problem, that was all Pete. That was Pete's call. It wasn't Scott Boras. He was not represented by Scott Boras when they made that offer. Not to mention, when they did make that offer, David Stearns wasn't with the organization. So again, he ain't giving you anything close to that. It's not going to happen. And again, when it comes to everything that looks out for Alonso, this is why I love David Stearns. This is why I'm such a big fan of David Stearns, because he understands the meaning of positional value as compared to just name value, name brand, name whatever he's going to do. Again, like I said, efficiency, 3 times out of 10. I think that when you're looking at the overall signings that he made last year or additions he made to the team, 3 times out of 10, they were a success, right? I mean, 3 times out of 10, they were efficient. Even more, to be honest. I mean, let's not forget, Bader and Taylor splitting with the way that splitting production in the first and second half, the way that they have of being part-time players. Shamanaya, Luis Severino, they were great. So, even some of the in-season additions, bringing in, Luis Torrens, he was a great backup catcher. Like, there were a lot of moves that they made that were very efficient in the offseason with the lack of depth that they had or whatever. David Stearns worked with what he had. So obviously he has a little bit more flexibility now, and maybe he can overpay in some sense, but he's not just going to do that for just anyone. Again, Juan Soto, that was more of a Cohen thing. We know that it was more of just Cohen. It had to do with his wallet, of course. Any price was fine. Any price was fine in terms of Juan Soto because of how rare of a talent he is. When it comes to Pete Alonso, and I agree with what David Stearns is doing right here 100%, I can do this all day, Pete, because that's how confident I am that he is going to end up coming back to the Mets. And listen, I am not someone who says 100% he's coming to the Mets. Remember how pessimistic I was about Juan Soto? Remember how pessimistic? At this current moment of where this is heading, Pete Alonso is coming back here whether he likes it or not. I'm telling you this right now, because as to what he thinks of himself, what he wants on this market, he's not getting anything better than what we have offered him. He's not getting anything better than $30 million a year, because that's pretty much what kind of matters in terms of, first baseman, of comparing him. That would have made him the richest first baseman. That kind of screws up Vladdy's mark in that way. So maybe he'd be asking for $32 million in free agency. But when it comes to, let's say, 3 years, and he's not 30 years old like Pete Alonso, he's like 25. So it's a different type of thing.
And actually,
when it comes to, and better, of course, and can provide that type of thing. But when it comes to the overall look at Pete Alonso, if this 3 years, $90 million is correct, right? If it is the deal, right? And he turned that down, if that's correct. Personally, I don't believe that was the case. Maybe it was the discussion of like 3 years.
I could see it though. I mean, we've talked about it with Steve Cohen's wallet. We've talked about higher AEV at shorter years.
I get it.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, instead of going, oh, I want to go 7 years at 25 and I'm paying the guy past age 35 when I could just go 3 years at 30. I mean, when it's all said and done, you look at the long term, like you're saying, oh, well, you're paying more this year.
Here's where I'm at here.
But you're paying less overall because it's less years.
Here's where I'm at here. All right. 3 years, $90 million. I'm looking at it for $30 million a year. I'm not looking at it for overall term, which obviously Pete Alonso wants. Seems like he does. And he's not going to get it because of the limitations he is as a player. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying that he's declining and he stinks. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is overall value compared to these other first basemen, $30 million a year is the best he is going to get. That is the best he is going to get. I understand him being, a prolific power hitter for 6 years. Maybe you would want, 9 figures in an overall contract, which, if you want to add another year, like 4 years, I'd be fine with that. But I'm not going anything past 5 years or anything. I'm not going past anything, of a certain AAV. To be honest, the $30 million, in my opinion, that's the most generous offer he could get at the trajectory that his market is looking like. I mean, look at this market. Seriously, look at this market again. Okay, Seattle Mariners, offensively starved team, strikes out a shit ton. Pete Alonso, that's a great fit. Fantastic. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Toronto, who the hell knows what they're doing right now, and they already have a premier first baseman who is making the most AV-wise in arbitration, who they'd like to keep. And then the Giants, nobody wants their money. They have too many right-handed bats. They're a platoon team. All of those other teams besides the Mets made the playoffs. All those teams besides the Mets missed the playoffs last year. So if that's a situation you want to go into, Pete, by all means. Again, Pete, I can do this all day. I ain't making any other, again, and if that is true, that he turned down $30 million a year because he wants more years, I ain't talking to you for the rest of the offseason. That offer's on the table. Take it if you want to take it. And if you get a better offer, have fun, because you ain't getting a better offer. It's not going to happen.
And if that's the case, that would be twice that he had very fair offers that were different, and he turned down both of them. So that's pretty risky. I mean, you got to be pretty confident in yourself to actually do something like that. And then the other thing I'll mention too, we've actually talked about it, but we talked about how Toronto, especially this past season, had a good amount of talent in that lineup on paper, yet there were no results. And even with Seattle, we're like, what happened to some of these guys? Why are they not performing the way they should have, as we thought going into the season? So it's like, well, if they're showing you that they're not good at developing hitting or getting the most out of their hitters, why would you want to go there? I mean, you're not going to, if you want to go there on a short-term deal, you're not going to have a career year there. And like we said with San Francisco,
don't even get me started on Toronto's hitting development. Don't even get me started. Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying, is that even if he wanted a short-term deal with one of those other places, that's not how you're going to get more money in free agency.
No. I think it's these situations where your options are running out. And again, he is falling into our laps. He has he does not have any leverage. He does not. I mean, do you think, unless the Giants, once again, 3 years, $90 million, let's say that's on the table, maybe I'd make another offer. Maybe I would, where you lower the AAV and make it a 4-year deal. Maybe I would do that. If you're cooperative with me, if you're nice to me, maybe I'd do that. You turn that down, or you just keep that offer on the table and you get a better offer from the Giants, and you take that offer. Guess what, Pete? Enjoy San Francisco. Enjoy it. Again, I'm not going to the massive limits to sign Pete Alonso. It's just not going to happen. He's not that type of first baseman that Freddie Freeman is. He's not the first baseman that Matt Olson is. Again, I don't want to hear, this constant overrating of him. And again, this is not me saying that Pete Alonso sucks and Pete Alonso needs to go. What I'm saying is we need to establish what his value is. That's what David Stearns continues to do with guys on the current market, and that's how you have to look at it. If you believe that he is worth $200 million going forward, I don't know what to tell you. Richard's saying Pete isn't anywhere close to Freeman. Absolutely, he is not. 100%. And if he wants more than, what was it, $166 million that Freeman got, granted a little bit older when he went to the Dodgers. Again, and then Freeman's another example of, not going all in for your homegrown guy. Let's not forget what the Braves did. They were willing to move on. They were willing to do it. It's not like they were just chaining themselves to Freddie Freeman of this has to get done. At one point, they were just like, okay, just let it go. Let it move on. Let it go. And speaking of homegrown guys, to end off this discussion, this whole talk, by the way, okay, this whole talk of Jacob deGrom coming back to be the ace of this staff.
Why the fuck is this?
I'm sorry, it's just been talked about way too much. Okay.
You gotta get off Twitter, brother.
I'm sorry. It's happening way too much, and it's spreading. It's spreading like a disease. It is spreading like Jacob Trouba. But when it comes to this whole talk about Jacob deGrom, I want to get into it, and then we're going to talk about another possible reunion we could talk about. This is the reunion episode. We're talking about Winker. We're talking about Alonso. A little bit of deGrom. When it comes to Jacob deGrom here, there is no one who loves Jacob deGrom more than me, okay? I am one of the biggest deGrom guys. I wish him nothing but success in regards to what he does in Texas, and I hope that he stays healthy. I hope he reclaims his dominance. It's not the fact that the Mets can't afford it. Not the fact that, oh, he's a bad contract, we can trade a low-level prospect for him. It does not make any sense. It would be a 100% 180 of what David Stearns is trying to do. Okay? When it comes to Jacob deGrom, yes, he's dominant. Yes, he is an ace when he is healthy. When it comes to Jacob deGrom in this regard, okay? David Stearns has established that he's willing to pay upside because of the fact of what this position has become in starting pitching. They break. They're not great investments. What has Jake done for the past 5 years? Break. That's all he's done is break. And listen, I hate saying that in regards to, whatever you're saying. I hate saying that because when Jacob deGrom was on the mound, it was quite a show. He would put on a show. But the reality of the situation, Jacob deGrom, all he has done is break, okay? That's all he has done. If you're trying to get those innings, and if you're trying to bring in this entire narrative of when the Mets traded back for Tom Seaver, that's not going to happen, okay? Tom Seaver, since he was, from the span that he was traded to Cincinnati, to the span of where he was traded back to the Mets, he pitched a little over 1,000 innings, okay? In that span. That was like 5 years, 6 years. When it comes to Jacob deGrom, his entire career, which he's been here since 2014 for 10 years, is a little over 1,300 innings. This is a way different game here. So if you're trying to compare Tom Seaver to Jacob deGrom, because Jacob deGrom wore Tom Seaver socks for his memorial, it ain't going to happen, okay? Not to mention, we don't know if it is true or not because, the New York Post can be the New York Post spinning the way that they do. But when it comes to the overall talk of Jacob deGrom, would he be willing to waive his no-trade clause for the Mets? After uprooting his family, going all the way to Texas, like 3 years later, it doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. And I understand that the talent is still there. Again, he's already throwing near 100. Yes, he absolutely is. It just does not make any sense to bring him in because he was an ace, because he was a name. Has he been on the field recently? No, he has not. He hasn't. And listen, this is going back on what I believed when he came into free agency after the 2022 season. I was willing to go the extra distance for Jacob deGrom because I believed that there was so much left. Then I was proven wrong. He needed Tommy John surgery. So now, looking at it from all facets of pitchers, they break. They 100% break. And no, I am not comparing. I'm talking about the people comparing Seaver to deGrom. I'm not comparing Seaver to deGrom whatsoever. Do I think that deGrom was more in his prime, more talented than Seaver? Yes. But Seaver, 100%, is the all-time great Met. He is the greatest. deGrom, you can argue, was the best. Best and greatest are a different thing when you're talking about a franchise. Different thing. Different time, whatever. But the fact that, Tom Seaver in his later years was traded to the Mets, different era. Completely different era. Right now, deGrom is healthy. How do I know he's going to stay healthy?
Because the season isn't happening. It's a lot easier to be healthy when there's not a season happening. You're throwing 100 pitches at the velocity he does. I mean, once the season happens, then let's see how long he stays healthy. I mean, everyone's healthy when they're sitting on the couch.
Yeah. I mean, it's just how this game has accelerated now. It's all about a committee of arms now to eat those innings. And you rely on your bullpen a lot. Typical starters go 5 innings. And if you can get over those innings eaters, they are definitely on the cheap because of their not, top frontline stats like Sean Manaea, like that. They get like the middle of the rotation money, but they are very valuable down the stretch of the season. Jacob deGrom hasn't pitched a full season for a long time. When was the last time he pitched a full season? 2019? 2019. 2020 was a shortened season. 2021, he was hurt for the second half. 2022, he didn't come back until August. 2023, he pitched like 10 games for Texas. 2024, he came back for the last 2 games of the season. Andrew, what do you think about bringing back Jacob deGrom? Would you want to bring him back?
I think I'd rather eat salad every day of my life than have
all
to
right,
talk about
all
Jacob
right.
DeGrom coming back
Yeah,
to
we're
New
not-
York Mets.
okay.
Like, enough.
Okay.
Like, enough. Like, it's just,
I don't
the
even
fact
know.
that this
I don't
has
even
come
know
from
why.
a source.
Frank, I don't
Yeah.
even know why I opened
No.
that can of worms. I don't even know why I did that because I thought that there was going to be some kind of rationale in there. That was stupid by me. That was idiotic. Now, speaking of reunions, the episode of reunions, I want to talk about one more thing. That being a report that came out, which again, a rumor. I'm saying that it's a rumor because I don't think it's been completely verified, but it is a reporter that has seemed to be accurate with a lot of the Latin American players. We know that a lot of them had that connection, and that being the overall fit and the overall possibility of Jose Iglesias coming back to the New York Mets. Jose Iglesias, in case you need a refresher, that man was a breath of fresh air. He was called up later in the season when the Mets were completely down in the dumps. The second baseman that they committed all that money to was an absolute bum, still is, and he is the most disgusting piece of never mind. When it comes to overall with Jose Iglesias, the Mets have had talks with him with a possible reunion. We know that he hired Scott Boras. You may know that name because he's connected to a lot of our clients. Now, when you look at what Jose Iglesias did for us, I mean, the guy was a breath of fresh air. Fantastic situationally with runners in scoring position, slashing 375, 419, 482. He signed a minor league contract, came back on a spring training invite. He was told that he would be the first infielder or the first middle infielder to be called up if they need him. And of course, great at second base, played a little bit of shortstop. And then also at third base as well, he was really good, which he didn't play as much for his entire career since like 2013, and still put up a 4 defensive runs saved and a 2 outs above average at third base at 130 innings. And then mainly at second base being the quick hands up the middle. 1 defensive run saved and 1 outs above average. Of course, we know the viral Latin pop single, "Oh My God," that turned Citi Field into a complete frenzy and turned into a camaraderie. Guys, I'm sorry.
Big words are tough. We know.
Big words are tough when you're a host of a podcast. Anyways, of course, he turned being the amazing presence in the clubhouse, having a career year. He's going to be 35 next year, fitting into this formula. It's weird. I'm not sure how it actually, no, I do see how it does. But again, another right-handed bat. I don't know how you look at it, but a possible reunion with Jose Iglesias. Frank, I will go to you. We saw what he did on the stage that was, whether it was the pop single stage or the overall playoff race. He really stepped up last year. He was fantastic. And he, for a minor league deal, was, I mean, lightning in a bottle. Incredible. What are your thoughts about how Jose Iglesias would fit in? I mean, is there anything that you've changed minds on with how this offseason has gone along? I mean, what do you think about the possibility of Jose Iglesias coming back and continuing his oh my God craziness and I don't even know what else. Just the incredible show of Jose Iglesias. What do you think?
I mean, I'd love to keep him. I mean, he definitely is a fun player to watch. Obviously, the guys in the locker room love him, and he really, was a big part of why the Mets had this improbable run And it was, in part because he had an improbable run. I mean, obviously the whole, being out of baseball the year before, and then he comes in and he plays really well. And, when you look at that age, and you don't project that the guy was going to hit 340 and everything like that. And I just feel that, I wouldn't predict that he hits 300 next year. I mean, I just really don't know. I mean, even though he played so great, I really don't know.
Sorry. It's just too funny. Okay. Anyways, continue.
Thank you. I'm just not sure how next year is going to look. We've talked about, you don't really overpay for second baseman. The Mets already do have McNeil here. Last year McNeil had the injury and struggled. Now you have Acuna played well. How does Jet Williams factor into this? And then, like we talked about with the bench, it's like, if you bring in Winker and you already have Marte, then you have Taylor. So I'm just kind of curious, how does everything fit? When the Mets got Iglesias this past season, as you have it right here on the screen, he signed a minor league contract. Is that something he'd be willing to do again? Probably not. I mean, maybe he would because it's
under
the Mets,
Scott Boras, absolutely not.
Yeah, but he's earned much more than that based off of his play and everything else that he does for a team, and also the hustle that he has. It shouldn't be this big thing, but there is an extra level of hustle that Iglesias has compared to your to your average player. It's those ones where it looks like, there's no way this is a hit, and he's still busting it down the line, regardless of the score of the game. That's something that, even if the guy isn't playing well, particularly, to see them always play that hard as a veteran, I always find is something that really could rub off positively on the young players that you have. So, if you have Acuna here, you have Jed here, or whoever, it's just a really nice example to set. And just like we talk about that veteran leadership or whatever, JD Martinez is not going to be here next year. So who is going to be that other vet that's kind of in the clubhouse? I mean, is Alonso going to be the leader? Is it going to be Nimmo, Lindor? Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But I just think overall, I would like to keep him back, but it's getting a little crowded, so to speak, as far as how does he actually fit in? Even though he played so well, it's tough to expect that to next year and predict that that's going to happen again, that he's just be the starting second base because he can hit 300. I can't bank on that, unfortunately. So I hope there's a way they could work this out, but realistically, with what they have and what they still need, I just don't see it really happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go to Andrew with this thought, and this is what I think. I feel like the only way that this works out and you benefit it for the young guys and everything of bringing back a guy like Jose Iglesias, because it's going to have to be a major league contract. They are going to have to trade Jeff McNeil if they were to bring back Jose Iglesias, because he's going to be on a major league contract. And he's not going to start off in AAA like he did last year. I would love to bring him back to kind of boost whatever he does boost, where we have, of course, the star power of Lindor and Soto and all of these guys. But again, we do need a little bit of dog in them. We need these guys with dog in them. Winker, Siri, these little, the Baders, the Tyrone Taylor, those guys filling in the margins. Jose Iglesias did that really well for us. So again, I don't think he's going to repeat this production again. This is a career year for him. But off the bench, I think it's a better fit here for some of the young middle infielders that you have coming through the system. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, again, if Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, the other little one, there needs to be playing time. But like you said, Jeff McNeil needs to be sent to Afghanistan or Zimbabwe, somewhere else, to have this be a fit. Because again, like we've said, the bench is getting cluttered. And if this decrepit squirrel girl looking dude is still here, then that's $30 million over the next 2 years, and you're going to have to play him. Then pay him off and let him go to the Chicago White Sox. Let him be the 3-hole hitter for the Chicago White Sox, be their best hitter, and go away. And pay him down. And then you can be able to, one, give the Cunha or Mauricio or whoever the opportunity, and also, again, like we said, Mauricio's probably not is going to start in AAA, so it's really the Acuna thing and easing Acuna into these everyday reps. Where yes, I think people want to just give him the job and run. Again, because of that small sample. Yes, it was only a few weeks, but hell, he did his great Francisco Lindor impression, where fans are like, well, this dude carried when Lindor got hurt, and was the production. I understand that.
I think when you're talking about these young guys who have shown something, I think Vientos has earned the starting third base job. You're talking about Acuna. I think he's earned the right to compete for the second base job for next year, and I'm expecting him to win it, obviously. Considering the alternative. But again, Jeff McNeil in that equation, if there's anything you still want to add, I mean, again.
And yeah, again, and like we've said throughout the show, there's just cluttering of, well, Taylor's here, and Siri's here. Again, instead of, and this is what I hate what Stearns does, but again, it's the right thing to do. There's too many bodies for a number of spots. Like, you could bring in 40 guys, in which that's the right way to do it. But again, when you're trying to pencil, okay, but now you got this guy's making big league money, and you can't have him. He's out of options, so now you're running into this scenario where, yes, you come in the spring, you're going to need more than 26 guys. I understand that, which is good. But to the extent of, again, we're trying to, on December 30th, we're like trying to pencil in an opening day roster, and as of right now, all the kids are down in Syracuse because you've got all these guys with big league deals. Again, there's still 3 months before the season starts. I would expect some of these guys to be gone. But again, as of right now, Iglesias, you're bringing him back, yes. And again, and this is why, again, I'm very anti, we'll just run back the core and run back everything. Because, exactly. It did that. I think, Knicks fans were, we got to bring back Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, they're looking pretty damn good. They didn't run, they went to it, they hit a peak, and then they got better. And I'm scared. Again, we'll see what Alonso. Obviously, Juan Soto's different. I understand Juan Soto's here now, but to the point of, let's just bring this guy back, and then he's 35, and even this, like, what can you count on? He was never been this. He's never hitting the ball hard, and the dog thing is very important.
Yeah,
defensively, it's fine, but again, the problem it's always been, is that dude making $30 million over the next 2 years. Thanks, Birdie Van Wagenen. Reasons why you don't give extensions to frickin' noodles. Besides the point, if
Billy
he's
Epler,
still here...
You're talking about Billy Epler.
Yeah, I know.
We have so many awful GMs, man. This is just... This is ridiculous.
But again, if he's here, then there's just... It doesn't... You can't construct or roster flexibility-wise, but again, we'll see what happens.
Here's
it's fine if he's here, if he's not.
Here's how I look at it with the whole center field thing. If you're talking about like the log jam of like a platoon between Siri and Tyrone Taylor, we know that there are some concerns when it comes to that position. Obviously, you have the run prevention in center field, which Stearns likes, but when it comes to how I look at this vision, both of them are making Taylor and Siri. Both of them are making $2 million. It's easy to cut loose if they're not doing well. Drew Gilbert, he does kind of need to start in AAA, not just because, he needs more AAA bats, he needs more of that experience. It's because he needs to play healthy. He has not been healthy recently, and he needs some ABs to get healthy before he makes his major league debut. But again, Tyrone Taylor, Jose Siri, we've talked about it before, like this right-handed heavy lineup. The first of them to go down, if they need to be getting rid of at when you expand the roster, or whether during May or whatever, one of them is right-handed. Whoever is playing worse and has become a little bit more unplayable, because they both can give you defense in center field, they can become the fourth outfielder that bats right-handed compared to Drew Gilbert, who can get playing time every single day in center field. Like that's how I kind of look at it, as to one of them is going to carve out the path for him. And then again, let's say by some miracle, Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri, both of them have career years. Drew Gilbert is a trade piece for some starting pitching. Yay! Like, there's so many different directions that they can go in with that situation. Now, in terms of the overall talk of Jose Iglesias, here's how I look at it. Again, and this is another angle to look at it, and I'm not really one to go outside of the numbers, but I am going to do it here to kind of direct this, to continue the conversation. You'll understand where I'm going with this. Jose Iglesias definitely was, a good presence for some of the young guys. Whether it is for them defensively, we know that Francisco Lindor has been really good for Mark Vientos. We know that when Francisco Lindor was out, Jose Iglesias and Acuna basically, for a second there, they were kind of combining the value that he was giving with the power from Acuna and the defense from Jose Iglesias and the overall situational awareness. When it comes to Acuna, I want to see him take the job because I feel like he's proven a lot. He's proven enough where I feel like he can take the job if he performs well in spring. The best way to get him there is a guy like Jose Iglesias. The reason why I say that is because we always talk about this with managers, right? Where it's like, oh, the best managers are like usually role players who have seen a lot of different things in this game. When it comes to Jose Iglesias, let's not forget what happened when before he came here. He was ready to give up. He was ready to retire. So he's definitely seen the bottom and he's seen the top now, obviously being the Latin pop star that he is now. So again, compared to the veterans here, Jose Iglesias, he never gave up in that sense. He never gave you that type of attitude. He worked hard to get back, got his minor league contract, grinded his ass off with Driveline, all of that stuff, and it turns out to pay off. Now he's a Boris client, and now he's on a market where Tommy Edman got that big extension, and he has a great market now. So he worked really, really hard to refurbish his career. Now let's compare that to the other veteran who is here, Jeff McNeil. What happens when things don't go Jeff McNeil's way? I throw a temper tantrum, I slam my bat, I fight teammates in the dugout, I scream into my helmet, and I think the entire world is going to explode and the entire, everything is going to just, come crashing down on me. That's the thought of Jeff McNeil. Do you want that being the type of impression on some of the young guys? Again, I don't know if that's that big of an impression because you have Lindor here and you got all these other guys. But like in terms of middle infield, do you think McNeil can mentor a toolsy player as well as Jose Iglesias can? I'm just saying, like, he rage quits at Connect 4. I think it's a good fit. Especially with postseason stuff. Iglesias is a bigger dog than Jeff McNeil right now. I'm sorry. Anyways, Frank, what do you think about that? I'm telling you, and he's cheaper too, probably cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mentor. I mean, like we said, if there's a way that they could move on from Marte, move on from McNeil via trade, and not have to spend too much to make it happen.
Yeah,
there's a way to make the team better. But like we said, as far as seeing the takers for them, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have much value right now, either one of them. So, and they're just not great contracts in general to take on, based off performance, age, things like that. So, I don't know. I mean, like we said, it would be a better fit, but they have to make the fit happen first.
Yeah. Basically what we were saying, this would be a deeper roster. This would be a better fit. Thank you, Brogedy thank you, Billy Epler. That's basically what we are saying. But again, I think we're going to scroll the comments here for these last 5 minutes for any questions that you guys have. I start a few. I guess you guys can go to take one lap through the chat and see if you have any questions that here's one that's really funny from Odd Villain. I haven't heard this before, so I'm gonna point it out. Carson looks like an Albanian landlord from Bridgewood. Haven't heard that one, but I will look that up later, and I will see if there's a comparison there, and I will let you know on Twitter if I remember to do that. Somebody asked about Murakami. I think he's the first baseman who is going to be on the market next year. I don't know much about him. I'm going to tell you right now.
Good MLB The Show.
And
great MLB The Show card. Great MLB The Show.
So yeah, there's that. Okay, so he stinks. But when it comes to the overall first baseman market, that more has to do with if
he plays third too, though. In MLB The
does he
Show,
play third? Yeah,
so
does Vlad. So does Vlad.
Yeah.
He plays third.
Hey,
Yeah,
he homered in the
that's not
WBC
happening.
against USA, so that's something. The championship game. There you go. I remember.
He didn't
moments.
play this year. He didn't play in the
in the
this
last
year, right?
WBC,
Yeah,
whatever.
last year.
Whatever the
Not in
WBC was.
2023?
Yes.
Yes, he homered.
He played
Where
third.
the card
ba-
is
I didn't
from.
even think he participated. Didn't he drop out?
What games you watching? Get
Then
that
who
beanie off.
who didn't
some
play
blood
on the
flow to your
Dominican
head.
team? Was it Jose Ramirez?
No, we're not. No,
We're talking about Murakami. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
dumb son
No,
of
no,
a-
Vlad, yeah,
Never mind.
Vlad
like the
didn't play
Dan
Dominican.
third.
I'm like,
Vlad didn't
Dan
play.
saying McNeil is washed. He had 2 good years like 4 years ago. Yeah, that's pretty much how I see him at this current moment. But you know what? Hey, for the last 32 games of the season, before breaking his wrist,
again.
Amazing, and we should 100% bet on that.
And he came back quicker than expected to try to help the team. I mean, that's a real
Yeah.
team player.
He hit a
Yep,
sack
and once
fly
he
against
came-
the Dodgers.
We
playoff
won,
RBI.
and then once we won two series without him. Then he comes here, and then we lose a series. So what does that tell you? Anyways, something about regards to the outfield market from earlier. Jay-Z saying that I think this is the one again married to or was married to Beyonce or still is.
Shut the.
If Stearns was willing to give 2 years to Teo, he probably throws the younger Santander a 3-year deal. I think it all really has to do with the all-around play that you get from Teoscar compared to Santander. But yes, Santander is younger, so it may be something that you do look at. I think the Mets should be in that market because I to be honest, I just want to see them lock down that DH position just outright, just for a few years. Like, because I'm so tired of us scouring away for a DH. And before anybody says JD Martinez, he was good in June. We didn't see him until late April. So again, we had to scrape the bottom of the barrel, wait it out so long to get an actual legitimate DH, and he still did not really produce the way we expected him. Oh, well, he's 36 years old. So what else is new? I think it's the best way to just nip this thing in the bud. The best way to basically compare yourselves to the overall power potential, the best way, I think that the best power potential to a team like the Phillies, who I think that you're still, whether they lost to us and whether they lost to us or not, you're still going to be competing with them for their overall power. And you're definitely going to be, again, with this pitching staff not being as front line, the Mets are going to have to outslug some opponents, and they're not going to do it, with, guys like, Jeff McNeil in the lineup or Starling Marte or signing a guy like Manuel Margot. Like, that's not going to happen. All right. Those types of bats, it's just not going to happen. They need to have a little bit more of a deeper thing. So I would go after Santander. I would, the highest of the high, I would go as high as, let's say, I don't know, 23 million a year for him. I definitely overpay in that sense because I think that it's a perfect fit to put into the 5-hole of your lineup. As for some other things that we can get into, can we trade Marte for Nolan Arenado? Cardinals said they didn't even need too much in return. I don't see, again, it's 1 year. But the Cardinals are in such real emphasis to cut cost. And I don't know. Maybe it may be a little bit of a discount. We take on partial part of that. But again, I don't see Arenado as a good fit here either. But it's bad contract for bad contract, or semi bad contract with Arenado. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on this? What you guys didn't? I don't know. Kind of counterproductive in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't really see the fit for the Cardinals, and like you said, they're trying to take off some financial money. I mean, yes, like you said, it's a 1-year deal, so maybe you pay off a little bit of the Marte, maybe they'll do it, but I'm not sure if that's the right fit of what they're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know. Andrew?
It's no. I mean, the Cardinals aren't full on like how you guys are thinking they're cutting money. They're just kind of trying to get their young guys opportunities, and that involves getting rid of first and third basemen. So that's why I think they could talked about it. If you're taking on the rest of the Arenado deal for the March, I think that's a possibility because again, they have only one outfielder. The other two suck. And Ciani, and they have Nootbaar, the only quality outfielder they have. They're going to probably move Walker back to the infield and Gorman to the corners. So I mean, it fits the Cardinal way to an extent. Well, Contreras is playing first, but I guess Walker going to play one of the outfield spots. But again, it fits the Cardinal way. Aging veteran, good locker room guy. But again, it just depends. Again, this would either have to be Alonso's gone, Bregman goes, and this is like maybe another low level prospect.
Yeah,
I mean. It's
one thing I will say.
One thing I will
say, one thing I will say in regards to Arenado, I'm not really big on trading for him. It's not really as similar to the whole Bregman situation, but it's just again right-handed hitter. Again, they just it's not really, the Mets are so right-handed heavy as to where the platoon splits, I know I've talked about them like not being something that I Bible that much, and it's all really about, how they respond to the triple threat of velocity, braking, and off speed. But when it comes to that entire concept of, adding more right-handed hitters, I think that it's just a better fit to just have somebody from the left side. One thing I will say that if they were to bring on Nolan Arenado, if that does happen, let's just say that. Marte may fit in that trade like that, but I would say that more likely to go in that deal is Beatty. More likely to go that is Brett Beatty because again,
they don't want corner guys. They want the corners for their guys. They don't want corner infielders. Cardinals don't want corners. They don't want Brett Beatty. They don't want no.
He won't let
Dabbed on. No, I'm not letting you continue. Because you're wrong. No.
Hey. Beatty, I would say, is one of the main guys that would go back because of the Mets fit. I don't know if they would play. They're probably not going to play him in left field. But,
exactly. No.
Yeah, but again, Beatty at second base. He's played second base a little bit. Again, it may be just a throw in or whatever. Again, there's a log jam here. Yeah, so maybe Marte is someone, that can be a veteran guy. I think Marte is more of just I look at Marte a little bit more of how they did with James McCann. It's just like, just get rid of him. Just get rid of him. And listen, James McCann didn't give you as much value as Marte could possibly give you, but it's like, oh no, James McCann. When it comes to Marte, the situation that they are in, you never, you'll never know. But when it comes to the overall look of another question, I will get one more here, and then we are going to end this one off. Trying to find which one I was trying to put on here. Oh, here it is. Okay. Now, we talked about this early on, but I do want to touch on it a little bit because there is another factor that goes into this. Stearns is interested in Bregman. This is from Marcus for his defense as well as his offense. As far as Pete goes, I think Greedy Scotty, which I think he's saying Scott Boras, is really screwing up with Pete, and neither one realizes it. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: Bregman is also a little bit in that boat, and obviously he didn't have a career year. Like, again, his career year was 2019 when he contended for the MVP. The balls were juiced or whatever. They're somewhat in that same spot because they're both going into their 30s and looking for those long-term deals. When it comes to Bregman, there's a little bit more sustainability of the skill set because he can definitely give you more. He's more of a two-way player than Alonso, of course. I understand the defensive part because of how Stearns likes to look at some of these players, of how they can give you two-way. But I really just see Bregman for the pedigree that you're looking at, whether I think he's a product of Houston or not. I see Bregman as a $200 million defensive upgrade because he's not an offensive upgrade from Mark Vientos. He's not an offensive upgrade from Pete Alonso. He's not an offensive upgrade. No, I'm not going to say Beatty. That was fuck. And then you also have, Ronnie Mauricio coming into the mix, who still is on your 40-man roster. You'll see where they kind of could spot him in there. Again, I don't know. Pete Alonso's just a better fit in that regard. I think that it's just better. I still see it as a smokescreen because I'm just really seeing more of it just being the John Heyman, Scott Boras type of leak with Bregman saying, I wouldn't count out the Mets. I wouldn't count out that. Like, it just doesn't seem like much of a substance. I feel like they're a contender to maybe draw the price up for some teams that want him, that maybe need like a veteran piece like Detroit, maybe a little bit like Boston. I know that Boston, it seems like he's out of, they seem like they're not willing to go that far.
I don't see how they do it with Devers and Story. That's a weird
one. I don't know. Weird. But I understand getting Bregman if you are Boston, because you can just shift over Devers to first base, because we all know he's not great and he's going into his 30s. He's not great at third base.
They have Casas too already. Yeah. So I mean,
wouldn't trade for Luis Castillo though.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know.
I was gonna say one other thing, kind of in relation to Bregman, but I find it interesting that like we're not really sure if we should buy these reports. But there also was that talk of like, oh, the Mets are interested in Adames. So it's like, and we didn't really see the fit. And we see a less of a fit there, because at least Bregman's natural position is third base, whereas Adames, like, that was just totally moving the position. So, this is now two infielders we've seen, and I wonder, could it be the reverse, where the Mets are linking themselves to these players as a smokescreen to Alonso? Be like, if you don't agree to our terms, we're just going to find a right-handed bat somewhere else. I mean, could you do the reverse?
I mean, playing devil's advocate there, we all know that the Mets have a lot of money to work with, so maybe it's not scaring Alonso in that regard, or scaring Scott Boras, because Scott Boras just puts up a human shield. But again, can Alonso really count? So, like, can he count to 5? Like, anyways, I'm sorry, I had to get Andrew there. Anyways, last thing that I will put in here, because it is definitely true. Jay-Z saying Stearns is running a masterclass around Boras. Glad he's the GM. Yeah, like, again, I don't think that he's flinching on this. Especially with Alonso and the current situation that he's in, that we've said in many examples that he ain't going to get a better offer anywhere else. I mean, we've talked about this before, even when we were for giving him a long-term deal before he had this rough season, when, our friend M. Easy was getting on us in regards to that, and he ended up being right in some ways, let's just say that. But when it comes to Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso's a lot more important to the Mets than he is to any other team. And I think the Mets also know that, and Stearns knows that, in terms of playing the market of what Pete Alonso is able to do, because he's really, he got the analytics, and he knows that what Pete can possibly provide, Anyways, on that note, when it comes to overall with this offseason, maybe it goes a little slow, continues to be slow, and we don't get a resolution with Alonso. But like I said, we can do this all day, because I personally think that he's going to be backed into some corners here. Like, it's going to get close, and it already has, because his market is shrinking by the second. So we'll see what happens. You never know. M. Easy, our guy, saying, would the Angels sign Pete? Sounds like something stupid that they would do, but I don't know. We'll see. It seems like they already made a lot of their moves early on in the offseason. They seem to be like making 7 moves and then just disappeared. But anyways, we're going to wrap this thing up here. Again, any big moves that they make, any major league moves that they do make, we will go live for those. Frank, I will go to you. Your final thoughts going into 2025. It's about to be the new year. The ball is going to drop in Times Square.
Yeah, I mean, listen, once we hit 2025, a month away from spring training. So we're getting pretty close to seeing Mets baseball once again. So we're getting through the tough part, you know what I mean? Like, it's like we kind of have like that slow part in the off season. You hope that once this new year comes around, you get those final pieces. And then it's just, all right, let's talk about what's going to happen next. Like, you know, what's the team actually looking like? So we're getting there. I mean, we're getting through the hard part now.
All right. Andrew, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, make sure, Aaron Judge is going to be there Times Square tomorrow. He'll drop the ball and start the new year. The Mets, again, we got plenty of guys to watch and wait. And again, once the new year hits, players start getting desperate and say, hey, am I going to Florida or Houston? For Houston, Florida or Arizona? Can David Stearns, who's sleeping, pull these bullshit, can he pull out some more 3 a.m.? Oh, yeah, I traded for Pete Fairbanks for Brett Beatty or some shit like that. We'll expect and see if there's, Staniks and those levels of guys who, I've seen people be like, oh, we're standing those guys. They ain't signed until February on, 1-year deals, bring minor league deals. And that's where Dumpster Dave gets you to go dolphin dive into the dumpster. In those
and 3
February.
a.m. is a great time to dive into dumpster.
Dumpster.
That makes a ton of sense.
Battling the squirrels and the raccoons. But again, enjoy the new year. Again, everyone's going to change their personality once the first of the year hits, and I'm still going to be the same fat rhinoceros I'm always going to be.
New year, new me. Anyways, Frank, I'll go to you.
He started.
I mean, I could close us out again and give a second final statement if that's what you'd like.
All right, we're past 2 hours, guys. I'm sorry. Whatever.
Have a safe New Year, everyone. That'll be my.
Let me just say Happy New Year. Like as per usual, getting close to baseball season, like we have said, but there still is a lot of work to do. David Stearns does absolutely nothing in the front office, so it's going to take a while for him to do something productive. It's really rough out here, and we just have yet another Sandy Alderson in our midst right now. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. For those of you who enjoyed the entire conversation, for those of you who were here the entire time, for those of you who popped in for a little bit, and thank you to everybody in the chat that talked along with us. Those of you watching, listening on playback, and you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications. And if you're a little sad that we're doing these once a week throughout the off season, don't worry. We have plenty of other content that will possibly come out. Tons of stuff in the works. We also have Twitter, and we also have TikTok or X or whatever you want to call it. Follow all of us individually as well. Links are all in the description. And of course, from the greatest podcast on earth, said by Darren Rivera. Thank you. That's very nice. Happy New Year, of course.
That is very nice.
And, the offseason continues to move along. Hopefully we've got some news and we've got some stuff that moves on, some reports that come out. And, of course, finally, let's go Mets. And we will see you guys next time.